The surgical elimination of Hezbollah's most senior commander has, well, it's just ignited the powder keg of the Middle East.
Completely.
And it's forced the region's, most formidable terror group into this impossible choice.
A truly strategic choice.
Fight now and risk a total collapse, or hold back and face an immediate internal rebellion.
There are no good options.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You've sent us a stack of critical analysis, some really fascinating intelligence assessments, and today our mission here is pretty simple.
A deep dive.
Exactly. A deep dive into the targeted killing of Haytham Ali Tabatabai. He was Hezbollah's chief of staff, taken out in a devastating Beirut airstrike. We're really going to be analyzing the strategic crisis this has forced on them.
And the timing is everything.
It is. So here's the 90-second context for you, just to set the stage. The strike itself, it happened deep inside Beirut's southern suburbs.
Their stronghold.
Right, in their stronghold. And it dramatically escalated tensions. This was almost exactly a year after a Washington-sponsored ceasefire was supposed to have ended, 14 months of clashes?
A ceasefire that was clearly not holding.
Clearly not. And Tabatabai, he wasn't just some low-level target. He was a veteran, a foundational figure active since the early 1980s.
A long time.
And he had just risen to assume the full military leadership of the Islamic resistance in 2024.
So he was the new man in charge.
The new man, and critically, the one leading their attempt to reconstruct and rearm after a catastrophic year of losses. So our mission is straightforward. We're unpacking all this source material to understand the immediate risks, sure, but also the long-term strategic blow this delivered.
What's fascinating here, and the sources really frame it this way, is that this isn't a new war. It's more like a powerful aftershock.
An aftershock following a major earthquake. I like that.
Exactly. You have to understand the damage that came before this. By late 2024, I mean almost the entire veteran military command.
The whole thing?
Pretty much. We're talking high-profile leaders like Hassan Nasrallah, the majority of the Jihad Council, which is, their version of a general staff. They had already been eliminated.
That is the context that makes this so crucial. They weren't just replacing some minor figure. They were scrambling to fill the biggest strategic holes in their entire history.
Precisely. The sources are very clear on this. Tabatabai was the new gear they installed in an already collapsing machine. He was brought in to stabilize the whole thing.
So his elimination isn't just one more casualty.
Not at all. It's effectively the decapitation of a terror organization's central command system, right when they were at their most vulnerable. It shows a deliberate, precise campaign to degrade their ability to operate faster than they can replace their leaders.
Okay, let's unpack who Haytham Ali Tabatabai actually was then. Why was targeting him considered such a massive strategic win for counterterrorism efforts?
Well, he wasn't just an old guard figure.
No. The sources say he was the architect, the engine behind their most lethal threat.
That's the key distinction right there. He was one of the foundational leaders of their whole military structure, and the man primarily responsible for developing the elite Radwan Force.
And when we say elite, we're talking about their special operations unit.
Highly trained special ops. We're talking about what? An estimated 2,500 troops? And they're trained for one thing.
Offensive attacks.
Offensive attacks. To try and capture civilian communities across the Galilee region. They are the shock troops. The offensive dagger pointed right at Israel's heartland.
And the sources are very clear that Israel sees the Radwan Force as, an intolerable threat. One that has to be moved or dismantled.
So eliminating the commander who built that force, who refined it, and then took over the whole military leadership, it's a massive tactical and psychological blow.
You have to imagine the impact on those 2,500 troops, right? The man who basically gave them their entire mission is struck down in his own backyard.
Absolutely. And his reach went way beyond Lebanon. The sources link him to coordination with allied groups in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, the whole resistance axis.
So taking him out cuts a major nerve for Iran's entire proxy network. It makes it harder for Tehran to sync up attacks or supply routes.
It does. Now, here's where the timing gets really interesting. You mentioned that compromised machine.
Right.
The sources confirm this strike happens right when Hezbollah was in the middle of this intensive reconstruction project, a total reorganization process after those devastating losses in 2023-24.
So what exactly was he tasked with rebuilding?
Everything. He was trying to repair a broken chain of command, restore morale. The war had degraded their physical assets, munitions and infrastructure. But more importantly, their human capital.
Their experienced leaders were gone.
They're gone. Tabatabai was really the only man senior enough, with enough institutional knowledge, to reconstruct that command authority after the Jihad Council was basically wiped out.
So this strike, it's just unmistakable proof of the immense pressure, the distress that the organization is under.
It interrupts everything. Their whole effort to rebuild strength and reestablish a clear hierarchy, it's all thrown into chaos.
Which seems to be the point. Prime Minister Netanyahu was crystal clear about the geopolitical objective. He said Israel will continue to fight terrorism.
And I'm quoting here, do whatever is necessary to prevent Hezbollah from reestablishing its ability to threaten us.
It's a signal. If you try to rebuild your offensive capacity, we will target the architects of that rebuild, no matter where they are.
It's a strategy of strategic degradation. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're not just hitting assets. You're targeting the leadership, the individuals, making the cost of leadership itself too high.
You can replace a missile. It's a lot harder to replace a commander with decades of experience.
Decades. With Tabatabai's experience and deep institutional ties. Impossible in the short term.
And that determination to act everywhere has shoved Hezbollah right into a corner. So now we have to look at the immediate aftermath, this critical dilemma facing the remaining leadership, like Secretary General Naim Qassem.
The debate is erupting internally.
Do we retaliate now or do we hold back? And the sources are saying both choices are, well, catastrophic for them.
It's a zero-sum game, really. And it's being driven more by their internal politics than any sound military strategy.
So on one side, you have the risk of retaliation.
Exactly. If they choose to fight, they risk losing the few meager gains they've made since the ceasefire. They play right into the hands of Jerusalem, who are clearly ready, maybe even eager, to intensify strikes.
They could trigger a full-scale military campaign they might not survive in their current state.
Right. But the alternative, that's maybe even more dangerous for them.
Failing to respond, projecting weakness.
Which, for an organization whose entire legitimacy is built on projecting strength, is a disaster.
Yeah.
It would severely damage their image in Lebanon and could spark, the first signs of an internal rebellion.
You mentioned field commanders already felt resentment. Can you elaborate on that containment policy from before?
I can. The sources point out that this containment policy was a directive from the top, from the central leadership. It was basically to absorb Israeli attacks during 2023 and 2024 without massive retaliation.
To avoid a full-ground war.
Exactly. But the field commanders, they saw their friends being killed, their infrastructure being dismantled, all while their leadership was telling them to be cautious. It bred a lot of deep internal dissent.
They felt the high command was prioritizing politics over honor.
And self-preservation, yes. So now, by killing Tabatabai, the new leadership is caught. If they absorb this attack too, they just pour gasoline on that fire.
It's a political pressure cooker.
It is. And because of those extreme internal pressures, the need to satisfy their own ranks, to let them vent frustration, it's very likely they'll engage in several limited days of fighting.
So it's not about strategic victory. It's about managing internal politics.
It's a political necessity masquerading as a military action. It's to stop an internal rebellion and project some kind of resolve to their audience at home.
And we know the cost of that. The attack itself killed 5 people, wounded 28, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. So this venting is going to mean more civilian losses.
Which brings up the next vital question. Who is rushing to their aid?
A good question. The sources seem to indicate they're very much alone.
It points to a significant factor of isolation on the battlefield. I mean, it is highly, highly difficult to imagine Iran jumping into a direct confrontation.
Tehran has its own problems.
Multiple severe domestic crises, a legitimacy crisis, huge economic distress, water and energy shortages.
Yeah.
You add the international pressure over its uranium stockpile, Iran is just not in a position to start a wider war to save its proxy.
And Hamas, other allies.
Not interested in renewing fighting. Hezbollah is exposed, and their leadership knows it.
So the strike really exploited both their internal fragility and their external isolation. Okay, let's shift focus to Israel's determination here to enforce its security, regardless of any diplomatic pressure.
We can expect them to intensify airstrikes, continue targeted operations.
But probably avoid a ground incursion, given the costs.
Probably. And this entire security nightmare, it all comes back to one thing.
UN Resolution 1701.
Exactly. The resolution that was supposed to be the bedrock of stability after the 2006 conflict. It called for a cessation of hostilities and, critically, a weapons-free zone south of the Litani River.
But what's fascinating is the frank admission from Lebanese sources that 1701 has been, well, a failure for years.
It has. You have Lebanese officials saying stability requires its full implementation, but then you have a retired Lebanese army officer in the sources warning that Israel will simply not accept a repeat of the post-2006 period.
When Hezbollah was allowed to rebuild and rearm despite the resolution.
That's the real insight here. A piece of international law just spectacularly failed to contain a terror group that was determined to rearm on their border.
And we can quantify that failure, can't we?
Yes. Lebanese authorities allege that Israel committed 5,350 ceasefire violations between the truce and November 20th, 2025.
5,350.
Regardless of who is counting what, that number just shows a complete breakdown. The ceasefire was a fiction.
That number shows that the line south of the Litani River was basically meaningless. So why would Israel negotiate now on a resolution that it clearly believes has been violated thousands of times?
They won't. Israel's actions right now are designed to increase pressure on the Lebanese authorities, on the Lebanese army, to finally move to disarm the organization.
And to push the Radwan Force away from the border.
To push that highly offensive Radwan Force away from the border and north of the Litani. This isn't a diplomatic game anymore. This is a security objective, and it's driven by the failure of international structures to guarantee their security.
They're essentially saying, if you won't enforce the resolution, we will enforce our security. And the price will be the systematic destruction of your command structure.
That's it in a nutshell.
So what does this all mean for you? The key takeaway here is that the killing of Haytham Ali Tabatabai was not random. It was a decisive, systematic action.
It crippled a major rebuilding effort.
An effort led by Tabatabai himself. And it exposed the strategic isolation of Iran's main proxy. They took out the man responsible for the group's most elite offensive force while he was desperately trying to fix a broken machine.
And this volatile environment isn't going away. Should Hezbollah opt for that limited fighting we talked about, they'll no doubt try to resume reconstruction afterward.
But Israel has now proven it can disrupt that process at any level, anywhere in Lebanon.
And the strategic loss, I mean, removing a major gear from an already compromised machine, that's going to force fundamental changes in their organization. How do they even manage a command structure with no veterans left? Their ability to project power has been severely and deliberately downgraded.
Which raises a really powerful question for the stability of the entire region. The sources show us that when a group like Hezbollah faces this impossible choice, retaliate or look weak, the fear of an internal rebellion, the need to vent frustration, it often just overrides rational strategic calculation.
It does.
So what does it mean for regional stability when the risk of internal collapse becomes a stronger motivator for war than sober military strategy? That's the question worth considering as the ashes settle.